One of my all-time favorite soups is chicken and dumplings, but only when the dumplings are fluffy. I'm going to show you how to do it. We're going to use 2 chicken breasts. Doesn't matter if you want skin on, skin off, bone in, bone out. Boil it in about 10 to 12 cups of water. Boil for about 10 to 15 minutes, and then you can skim off any scum. And if you do like me and use a boneless, skinless chicken, you're not going to have much to skim. Now add your vegetables. It'll be equal parts carrots, onion, celery, about 1/4 cup each. Season to your liking. I'm using about 1/2 tablespoon of black pepper, 1/2 tablespoon of onion powder, I am using about 1/2 teaspoon of accent, or you can use MSG. This is optional if you want flavor. Something else that is optional is cayenne pepper. It's just going to give it a little kick, and use as much as you like. The bulk of our flavor and most of our sodium is going to come from Better Than Bouillon. That is the chicken base. Use about 1 tablespoon. I am going to be using some fresh herbs. That is about 2 tablespoons of fresh parsley. I'm also going to be using about a teaspoon of fresh thyme, teaspoon of fresh rosemary, and 2 leaves of sage. If you don't have the fresh, dry herbs are perfectly fine. Just cut back on the amount a little bit. I am adding 2 giant bay leaves. You can add 4 if you have normal sized ones. Another substitution that you can use for the herbs is poultry season. Use about 2 teaspoons. One of the mistakes that people make when they're preparing a chicken noodle soup is to overcook the chicken. Even boiled chicken can become dry. So at that size, that chicken breast is completely cooked through and through in about 20, maybe 30 minutes. Take it out, set it aside, and continue boiling your broth to develop the flavors. I allowed my broth to simmer for about another half an hour, and now it's time to adjust for flavor. I needed more salt, so I added about a teaspoon of seasoned salt. Seasoned salt is one of my favorite forms of sodium, but I love Better Than Bouillon. That stuff is packed full of sodium. So what I'm using this time is the organic vegetable base. If you haven't tried it, it is delicious. I also added a teaspoon of onion powder. I added a little more accent, about 1/2 teaspoon. Then I added some more black pepper. Now, if you like different seasonings and flavors in your chicken noodle soup, go ahead and add that. That's what your palate likes. This is what my palate likes. I am removing approximately 2 to 3 cups of broth, and we're going to use that to thicken up our soup. Altogether, we should have approximately 10 to 12 cups of liquid. If you have extra, save it and freeze it. Any extras can be used for another soup or even gravy. Your smile, your style is so fly. To thicken the soup, to make it a cream soup, you will use about 2.5 tablespoons of butter. You'll also need equal amounts of flour, so 2.5 tablespoons of flour as well. Cook the flour in the butter for about 2 minutes and then add the reserved broth. As the mixture comes to a boil, it will begin to thicken up, and once it thickens, go ahead and add it to the rest of the soup. Make sure you get all of that out, scrape it out, get some of that juice in there, make sure you get every bit of it. I grew up with the addition of green peas in my chicken noodle soup. It is totally optional if you don't want it, but I think that's the way that the mamas used to sneak veggies into the babies. Today I diced the chicken into bite-sized pieces. If you prefer, you can shred it and just add it back in. Now this is the key to making the best fluffy dumplings. You have to use white lily flour and you have to use self-rising. I have 1.5 cups of flour and I add to that about 1.5 tablespoons of dried parsley. The only other thing you need is about 1 cup of heavy whipping cream, and that is it. Don't add anything else to it. Don't think it needs salt. Don't think it needs sugar. Don't think it needs any baking soda or baking powder. The only thing it might need is a little bit more whipping cream if it feels too dry. Our soup has been simmering while we made the dumplings, and now it's time to add 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. Now if you like, you can substitute milk for the heavy whipping cream. I don't think it's going to taste nearly as good, but it's totally up to you. I see a lot of excess butter on top of my beautiful soup, so I'm going to skim that off. Really, it doesn't hurt anything. However, it just means that I used too much butter when I was making my thickening agent. So I think I used 2.5 tablespoons. Cut it back to 2 tablespoons, and then you can use either 2 tablespoons of flour or 2.5 tablespoons of flour. Or you can just leave it on there if you like the extra butter. I'm also getting rid of the bay leaves. They have served their purpose. Now this part is important. You have to let the soup come back up to a simmer. It's going to thicken, and then it's going to give a nice hot base for our dumplings. Just add our dumplings in by the spoonful. You can make them bigger or smaller if you like. They're going to rise pretty quick. So you're going to see by the time we get to the last dumpling, those first few will be huge.
Yeah.
I believe that all of your dreams are duration. You took my heart, all my keys, and my patience. You took my heart, all my...
Now, lower the heat to low, cover it, and let it cook for 20 minutes.
You give me something that I never had, something that you never seen, something that you never been. But I wake up and nothing's wrong. Just get ready for work. To me, I be work. You see me do me dirt. Just tell me about that work.
See? I told you they were going to be fluffy.
Beg you something,